run a 750 person remote organization.
We're the best in the world at building AI and automation solutions for enterprise technology companies.
What is the AI technology that you're bringing to the equation?
A great question. So,
Fredrik Thomassen, CEO and founder of AI-powered creative services company, Superside, working with Amazon, Salesforce, Vimeo, and more clients who need your creativity.
2016, people thought it was really strange, like how can we trust this remote company? We believe this is one of the most important transitions of the 21st century.
What challenges have you faced and what have been the keys to success?
I would say that's certainly a challenge for us. A big part of professional services will get disrupted by AI technology.
What's your advice for people to get ready for that?
The one advice that we try to give is
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Lead the Team. I've got a treat coming your way today with Fredrik Thomassen, who is the CEO and founder of AI-powered creative services company, Superside, which he built out of Y Combinator. And Superside, in case you're not familiar with it, has some of the biggest customers in the world, including Amazon, Salesforce, Vimeo, and more. They're committed to supporting in-house creative teams that are overlooked and under-resourced. The company's mission is to alleviate the immense strain on creative teams and help them to drive more innovative, awe-inspiring campaigns by embracing AI. And by the way, this all applies to you out there too. By embracing AI, Superside is transforming the creative industry at large. It's pioneering new workflows and delivering cost and time savings back to customers at unprecedented rates. This is a topic that is burning hot for leaders on Lead the Team, and I thought this would be a fantastic perspective on AI and how it's changing things out there, especially on the creative side. Fredrik, welcome to Lead the Team, sir.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction.
Oh man, it's gonna be fun. He is in the beautiful country of Norway, Oslo, Norway, and he just laid on me, it's about freezing and foggy. So it's perfect weather for an interview. So what is a borderless company? Talking about Superside first. What's a borderless company and what has the positive impact been?
We are in 65 countries, 750 people all over the world working together in what is now one of the largest companies in the world that is full remote. And there's a ton of positive things. I guess for me, it's like you join a call with your team and it's 10 people from 10 different countries telling 10 different stories. And sadly, all the places seem like a nicer place to be than Oslo most of the time. But it's Buenos Aires and Bogota and San Francisco and all these like amazing places. And yeah, it's just amazing for me to be part of that team. And yeah, I enjoy every day of it.
Well, are you borderless? Super, I guess I'm thinking about Superside as super remote. Are you super remote because Norway, for some people, might be hard to recruit these hundreds of people into, or why go borderless?
I mean, I think we go borderless because we believe in a world where there's global equality of opportunity, where everyone, irrespective of where they live, should have the same chance to succeed in the global online labor market. We believe this is one of the most important transitions of the 21st century, and we want to be part of accelerating that transition. And I think we've been able to make a small dent at least, but yeah, it's a long road.
So how long have you all been remote? From day one, or is it a transition that was initiated by an event?
So we've been remote since day one, and
Okay.
before COVID in sort of 2016, until when was COVID, 2021, people thought it was really strange. Like, how can we trust this remote company? Just like these random people working together on the internet. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden people are like, how do you guys do it? Any advice? And especially in the US, I would say post-COVID, it's become almost the norm to work with external service providers and not meet them in person. Like, we work with search firms, we work with various other agencies, lots of different partners, and most of them we never really meet. And that's sort of the norm. And for us, it's been obviously a huge boon to our growth and made it a lot easier to convince our customers that we are, in fact, not avatars, but real
Yeah,
humans.
you guys got on this trend early, and it sounds like you were able to help lead your customers who were also going more remote early on. One of the, and I want listeners to keep listening because we're going to get into the AI piece, but something fascinating here. Typically, when you think of creative agencies, it's easier to be creative in person, right? You can see the person. There's a water cooler ideas. I think about back in the day how Apple like redesigned their headquarters to have more bumping in and interactions from different groups. And so, how do you think about having an inherently super creative agency working with clients who need your creativity, but you don't have all that, right? Because or you get to do it differently because you're remote. How do you think, I guess a couple of questions. One, thinking about creativity in person versus remote, and what challenges have you faced and what have been the keys to success?
I mean, I think there's for sure a lot of trade-offs working remotely. I think for us, it's important also to acknowledge that a lot of the great artistic contributions in the world have been by people working alone. Most great pieces of art or most great pieces of
Okay.
fiction writing haven't been a group together in a room, kind of like figuring it out and throwing balls and spitballing ideas. It's been hard
Okay.
work. Some authors sitting down for 8 hours a day, kind of grinding it out, writing a masterpiece. And so I think that's sort of more the norm, at least for
That's how
most
you think
people.
about
And
it. Okay.
I think the way we think about it is hiring people that are able to work independently and enjoy kind of being by themselves. And we try to hire people that are, I guess, more introvert, high conviction than high extrovert, low conviction, if that makes
Okay. Okay.
sense. And so that's how we attack it. Obviously, there are trade-offs, right? And I think there's many situations where, particularly when you're trying to understand the client and their needs, it would be easier to be in person, and that's certainly a challenge for us. It's I guess cost prohibitive to fly our whole team into San Francisco and hang out with the customer for a week. Maybe the quality would be better, and we're trying to do our best to ensure that we're compensating for that in lots of different ways.
Yeah, it's an interesting distinction that you drew there because I threw out the Apple case. Well, Apple was inventing technology and phones and the Mac. And you're like, and you didn't say this. What I heard was, well, we're not creating products. We're creating ideas, marketing, more artistic solutions where having alone time, being isolated, like Picasso didn't have a focus team with him when he was painting his masterpiece. So it's interesting and I think I'm translating that for the leaders to think about what's the creativity that your team needs and your job descriptions need and then backing into how
I mean, I
remote.
think people take inspiration from different places, right? Like I guess Picasso, I don't know where he hung out. He presumably hung out a lot in brothels and trendy cafes and stuff, and took inspiration from those places. For me, it's like I like to be in nature, and other people like to be in cities, and people draw inspiration from different places, and yeah, it's a very individual thing, maybe, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting for leaders to think about there. You said you draw inspiration from nature. What's one of the most inspired things that you remember? Can you maybe walk us through, hey, I was in nature, I observed all this snow, these reindeer, or
It was
whatever,
simple.
and how
Finally,
this
everything was simple.
translated.
It was just white and all this noise from everyday life. I think the interesting thing with nature, I think it happens to a lot of people, and it definitely happens to me. It's like you have all of these problems and all of these things that you think about,
Mhm.
and you have this idea that, okay, now I'm just going to go into nature and like spend a lot of time thinking about all of those things and like figure it out. But what happens to me is I go into nature and those problems, they just disappear, or my mind just stops working on those problems, and it's a really nice escape. I'm not sure if it's directly helpful or in any way kind of directly contributing to solving actual problems, but at the very least it's really nice for me to know that like I can just whenever if things are become too challenging, I can just go into a really nice old forest and walk around in it for a while, and I will feel relieved, and yeah, I can just stay there until I feel great again and go back into the city.
Yeah, it's cool for leaders to think about that. It can feel unproductive to get off the beaten path. You walk in the woods and you're like, wait a minute, I should be working, right? I'm a CEO and founder of a 24-hour a day organization, and I don't have time to walk in the woods. But if you see, well, hey, that's part creating that mental white space, getting away makes you better at work. You're much more likely to make that walk a priority.
I think so. And I mean, there's this, I guess, old Zen Buddhist saying that says, don't work on your mind with your mind. And very often, at least when I have problems, and in the Western world, when we have problems, we sort of really try to think about it. And we go to a psychiatrist or psychologist or coach. I have a coach. He's been great, like nothing wrong with him. But it's this very kind of rational way of working about your problems, and sometimes it's sort of you just go away for a couple of days in the forest, or you take some holiday or do whatever you kind of like, and then it's not not working on your mind with your mind, but somehow you come back and you have the solution. It's strange, right? Like, and I think it's at least important to me to acknowledge the import of just letting the mind figure things out for itself.
Such a good reminder. Thinking about a problem over and over doesn't necessarily solve the dang problem. If you did, you would have solved it a lot more quickly. And sometimes giving yourself permission to do that. I mean, it's a great message from a creative leader to other people out there today who are listening. They face some problems, facing challenges. Sometimes thinking more doesn't solve it. It's getting into your body, getting out away, creating that mental space. Now, when I read the introduction and I started looking at Superside, it was interesting. One, you have all these marquee clients and a very impressive list. And you've got creativity, and you're working with, and for leaders, you work with inside companies that a lot of times have inside creative groups, right? They're responsible for the company branding or product branding, and then they need support. They face hurdles. And that's where Superside comes in with this specific AI technology. What is the AI technology that you're bringing to the equation that these clients are finding to be so valuable?
I mean, more often than not, we meet with our customers who are predominantly enterprise technology customers, and they need a lot of things for their different problems. And most enterprise technology companies, they need to produce video, they need to produce motion graphics, they need to produce audio, static, ads, brand imagery, like everything, and ideally all sort of everything everywhere all at once, and ideally needs to be really fast, and there's ever more kind of demands pressing on them, and we provide sort of an integrated solution where we build on all of the best AI tools out there. We meet with hundreds of startups every month to try to navigate this ever-changing space and try to stay on top of it and see ourselves as sort of an orchestrator of the various best practices. And that's on the creative side. Then we have an AI and automation team that for every customer will build kind of a custom model or an AI first brand design system and try to set things up in a way that allows us to move significantly faster down the line. And most of this stuff is really just building on someone else's underlying technology and making sure it fits very well with the specific needs of the company that we're working with.
So why did you found this company? Because when you founded this, the AI tools were little babies or maybe even non-existent, right? And now they're like changing everything. So what was it when you founded the baby company or baby AI, and now you got
we did.
brand.
Yeah, great question. And we did the Y Combinator back in 2016, and
And what is
we
that
raised
for the
the
listeners? What is Y Combinator?
Y Combinator is a startup accelerator, I guess, or I think they try to name themselves like a seed fund, and every year there's a couple of hundred startups kind of coming out of Y Combinator, among them Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, many other very successful companies. And when we did the program in 2016, our group partner was Sam Altman, and he sort of wanted to do our seed round, and obviously said, that sounds great.
And
And
he
he
was
wasn't that
not
famous.
the Sam at that point.
He wasn't that famous at that point,
He
and
was an
he hadn't even
investor,
started.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. He was doing
Yeah.
a lot of investments himself, and did it sort of exceptionally well. One of the best angel investors of all time, I guess. And then at some point he just decided to leave Y Combinator and start this open AI thing. And we were like, okay, that's a strange move. Like, this seems very theoretical. Like,
Yeah. Who would
why is
do
he doing
that?
that? And then for
Yeah.
like many years he was just like, oh, this thing can now play like Dota 3 or StarCraft versus like a human player. And we were like, okay, that's cool, but like, is it actually gonna have any real world impact? But slowly and certainly, and we stayed sort of very close to this progress and paid attention, and over time, and I think 2021 or so, it started becoming very, very interesting. And then in 2022, obviously, it became obvious to everyone, and then we just jumped on it fully as a company, and been sort of going all in on that ever since, and really trying to take the position as the global leader in AI powered creative services. It seems to me, and I think it's becoming obvious to almost everyone, that a big part of professional services, be that legal or consulting or creative services, will get disrupted by sort of some AI powered or fully AI technology or hybrid service software company. And yeah, we're trying to take that position.
So it sounds like you're you're one of the like you're what you're saying is, hey, AI is out there. There are all these different industries out there. Each industry is going to have a leader that adapts these AI tools to that specific vertical industry and really help them rock it and conquer it. It sounds like you're really hanging your flag on marketing and branding services, right? That's like anything, and you're, whether it's Gemini or if it's Claude
Totally.
or, you
Totally.
mentioned ChatGPT, you guys are building on top of all that so companies can use it more effectively. Is that right?
Every week there's a new number one, and we just need to stay on top of it. We're building our own stuff too, don't get me wrong, but we're trying to solve, I guess, smaller problems in a sense, or more industry specific problems. Like, we're
Yeah.
working on our AI briefing, for example, that helps people brief creative projects in a more efficient way. It's very particular to creative services. And then,
When you say
but then
brief,
obviously,
what do you mean?
so whenever someone needs to do something creatively, there's always a brief, everything from, if it's a 5-hour project or 10-hour project to make a new Facebook banner ad, or if it's, a skyscraper to an architect firm, you need a brief. And if the brief is better, higher quality, the project typically becomes a lot better, and it matters a lot how people make this brief. And typically people spend a ton of time on it. If you take the briefing process all together with briefing, scoping, quoting, back and forth, endless, like negotiating kind of all the deliverables, that's sometimes 40% of the entire project, both for small and big projects. It's crazy. And so if we can streamline that with AI, it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, so good. So what I hear in that is, for the briefing, a company would give you all a creative problem to solve, and the creative and your brief is really your creative vision for what's possible. It takes a long time to do that, and you guys are able to accelerate that using these AI tools, or help people to respond to that in a very fast way.
I mean, that's the idea. I mean, from our side, instead of us kind of having a big team helping the customer with that brief. We have the AI help the customer with that brief. The customer gets an instant quote, says we expect this to take 20, 30, 40 hours, whatever. The customer can say yes or no, or they can change the quote, and they can sort of like negotiate with the AI until they're happy. And then once they're happy, we will just do it. And that's just going to be a massively simpler, better, easier experience for everyone involved, and will allow us to reduce our prices by maybe 10, 20, 25%, and we're giving all those cost savings back to our customers. And I think we're pretty much the only ones that are doing that right now. Pretty much every other creative agency, advertising agency out there are using the tools, saving a lot of time, but not passing the cost savings back to their customers. We feel that's unfair. We've been able to we're getting closer to half of our project volume now fully or partly AI powered. It's on average maybe 60 to 70% more efficient than traditional methods, and we're giving 100% of those cost savings back to our customers, and we think everyone in the industry should start doing that.
The AI tools out there for creatives, what do you see as, and I'm thinking about like the Geminis and Chat GPT and the tools coming on there, like, and for people that might have smaller organizations. Like I know I've read that Canva is now in Chat GPT and these sorts of things. Who are you seeing out there, or who are some of the leaders on the tool space?
I mean, the market is incredibly fragmented at the moment. It's sort of like for every modality, and by modality I mean video, motion, static imagery, whatever, like you have multiple modalities. And then for each one of those, you kind of also have different needs for an SMB and an enterprise. And within each cell in that matrix, there's 10 different companies doing things. So like Canva, for example, will be very, very good at images for consumer and SMB. Like that's their bread and butter. It's a huge company at this point. And I think very few people will be able to beat them in this sort of specific use case. But you wouldn't really use Canva for enterprise grade video editing or video production, and then you would use something like a Runway or a Kling or something like that. And so it's crazy. And Adobe is sort of on their heels, right? Like not fully catching up yet, at least. And they're making tremendous strides. But for them to cover all of these modalities for all of the customer segments, it's gonna be tough. And then you have a ton of startups that are doing use case specific solutions as well. So you have a ton of startups that are doing Facebook AI ad generation type software, and it's getting really good, right? Or not really good. I mean, it's not fantastic yet, but it's for a lot of companies, especially if the ad is just a product of some sort and you have a product images and you just want to say this thing is on discount or whatever, like it's going to be more than good enough. And some of them are seeing pretty tremendous growth. And I have a very hard time kind of predicting how exactly it's going to turn out.
So how do you build, and you said you had 800 employees?
750, yeah.
770 employees. How are you preparing them for this world? Because you're doing the business of AI with your teams. You're responding, you're growing with your clients. But you just said this is a fragmented market. We don't exactly know. Our crystal ball is, and everybody's crystal ball is not the best. So how do you apply? How do you prepare for the next 2 or 3 years? How are you preparing your team?
I think it starts with me probably, and I can for sure do a better job, but I try to just use all of the various tools as much as I can and learn as much as I can. And all of our leaders are trying to do that too. We're treating it as the singularly most important priority for our company. And
which is what is the single most biggest priority?
For everyone to just get with the program, right? Like there can't be any doubt that it's not happening or that we somehow will hang out in Photoshop and edit pixels by hand in 2 years from now. Like it's not gonna happen. And I think it's important for everyone to realize And to also be optimistic about it, then I mean, there's some sadness, I guess, around craft to some extent being lost. But I think at the same time, there's tremendous opportunity and tremendous optimism around the new abilities this give
Mm.
for creation, and both for the already exceptional designers and creatives that we have in our company, for them to create absolutely amazing things. If you have a 10-hour budget, maybe before you could create an okay static image, and now you can create a relatively compelling photorealistic video, right, for the same budget. And it feels great to create cool things.
Mm.
And then it also opens up the opportunity for non-creatives, non-designers to finally get in on the game. The barriers to entry for many of the traditional design tools have been quite high, but now it's easier to put to make your ideas come to life. So I see it as a mostly positive force, and it's not clear to me that the world will need fewer creatives and designers in a couple of years from now, but it will for sure be a very different world in terms of which tools and the ways that people are working.
So you said they need to be optimistic and sort of get beyond the sadness of, hey, the craft that I know that I spent years that I went to college for, or I've been trained on is changing. What is the what are some what's advice that you have for leaders today who don't feel that optimism, who feel loss, or employees feeling that not feeling optimistic? Maybe they're scared, they're fearful, or they're just throwing up their hands and saying, I have no idea what's going to happen.
I mean, it's very hard to say how it's gonna go, and so I'm not an expert in like making predictions about like the future of the world, and maybe everything will just blow up and so on. But for me, I don't know. I just don't
Maybe
think.
okay.
I don't know.
So the
I
first
mean,
piece of advice is it might be terrible, but it might
it might.
not.
It might not. I mean, and you hear people taking these kind of crazy positions on both sides of the spectrum, right? Like you meet people that are, we should definitely not invest in this AI thing, cut down forests and, spend more energy doing this thing. It seems completely nuts and we're just going to kill ourselves and it's completely wasteful. And then you have people on the other side saying, it's like the God's gift to man and we're creating this amazing thing. It will solve all of our problems. And I don't know. I have right now a very high degree of uncertainty about
Mhm.
it. I think it's very hard to predict which type of or what type of work will be disrupted first. So, for example, within design, it's already really good at coming up with interesting ideas for concepts, but it
Mhm.
is generally really bad at drawing straight lines. And so or aligning boxes or something that seems simple. And
Mhm.
so I don't know, having these heuristics for like what seems simple, what seems hard, and assuming that AI will only disrupt what seems simple seems to be like an incorrect view of the world. I think so. So I think that you need to have a very high degree of uncertainty about what's gonna happen. And I think it's important also to bear in mind that there are some pretty amazing possibilities and some pretty amazing unsolved problems in the world. I think for each and every individual designer, there's a significant chance that the edge that you will have over non-designers will increase. And so
Hmm.
today you obviously have an edge because the various tools and so on, and so you can outcompete non-designers, and therefore you get a job because people, you're much better than me, so you do that and I do this. I mean, this is how we specialize in an
Mhm.
economy, and I think there's a good chance that designers in 2-3 years will be that it will be an even bigger. If you learned all of the tools, mastered all of the tools, I think there's a pretty significant chance that proficient designers will be significantly faster and more productive than the rest of us.
Wow.
So
So what's your
fingers
advice for
crossed.
people to get ready for that? It sounds like learn the tools, test the tools, and don't get too dang comfortable on the tools you have right now because
I
they
think
may not.
so. I mean, Yeah, I think so. And I think the one advice that we try to give is make sure that you work in a company that takes it seriously. And so at least here in Superside, we take it very seriously. Everyone, I'm not sure everyone, but most people are pretty optimistic about it. We're experimenting. We're giving people extra time to like figure it out on a per project basis. And so Superside is just a good place to be if you want your career over the next decade to be
Hmm.
successful. And we're sort of providing that as a guarantee that we'll continue to invest in people, and you don't have to necessarily think about it that much. Just do your job, do your best every day. We'll keep training, we'll keep working. You're learning per project. You sort of and over time, over the next 2 or 3 years, it's gonna be fine. But to go to a place where everyone around you is like, I hate AI, and some places, I don't know, maybe Hollywood or some places there is a pretty negative sentiment
Yeah.
around it, and I think that's probably very, very risky. Something I wouldn't personally expose my career to.
Yeah, it's an interesting edge for companies to think about. It's like you can tell, and I haven't really thought about it this way. I think it's interesting hearing it from such a creative company as yours, Frederick, is that part of your compensation to employees is letting them know we're going to keep you sharp, we're going to keep you moving forward, and you're going to be learning the best tools. You don't have to worry that you're going to be working on the outdated stuff and not going to be competitive in the marketplace. We're going to give you the best. We're going to keep you going and help you grow in your career. And it's interesting to think about that even to be like a mechanism for employee retention. Whereas before you might think, well, the edge might go to a contractor or someone who's like a solopreneur or a small company. But if you've got a big company who's all focused on this, you're obviously going to be, you're able to put a lot of resources into it. Maybe a lot of other organizations aren't.
For sure, absolutely. So we're doing that, and I think we're also just solving a little bit of a different use case. So, I mean, I think it's totally possible to go to Upwork and Fiverr, and right now, many companies probably should use those platforms more because they tend to be very quick at surfacing novel technologies or people understanding novel technologies. These are sort of the largest freelancer marketplaces on the internet, and so
Hmm.
if you're looking for someone who's like really good at one specific like AI video or something, totally do that. I think the use case that we're solving is a little bit different, right? Like we're solving an enterprise company's
Yeah.
use case, which is typically that they need someone to be an integrated provider and solve their entire problem. And their entire
Yeah.
problem is that they need a lot of different things at the
Mhm.
same time, right? So they need an overall kind of AI and automation system to be built for their large scale, assets at scale kind of production in multiple different countries. They need experts on video, experts on audio, experts on concept. I mean, they need everything kind of at the same
Yeah.
time, and it's also so it's a little bit different. And if you're an individual designer, there's a lot of folks out there that are going very aggressive in the SMB direction. There's a lot of startups that are making SMB software, but I think it's probably a safer route to try to stay close to the enterprise.
Yeah, and area thinking about that is there is such a gift for companies to get close with their partners and suppliers. Because if you're just getting side gigs or getting people with side gigs on Fiverr and they're doing one-off projects, they're not going to really know you that well. And they're going to be getting work and content they may have used for other organizations. It's just going to be it's not as convoluted. It's going to be could get convoluted. But if you're driving an enterprise organization, yeah, you've got to have someone who can integrate fully with all your needs and understand you and then align that stuff. And that is no easy task. But yeah, but what a gift. And I suspect that um, these big organizations that you're working with, they have very high demands creatively.
For sure. I mean, it's the Premier League, right? Like the
It's the
American
Premier
big
League.
tech
Yeah.
companies. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the it's for sure tough clients. Yeah, can't say otherwise.
So, Frederick, starting to wind this up. It's been a lot of fun. We didn't get to talk a ton about your background. Like, why Norway? Like, is it why Norway?
Why Norway? I mean, born here, born and raised. Not in Oslo particularly. I'm from a small town in the south. I think that definitely shaped my view of the world. We had the one TV channel until I was 13, the sort of state Norwegian TV channel. Then we got internet, and obviously I thought the internet is the most amazing thing in the whole world, and I have sort of spent the rest the rest of my life probably spending way too much time on the internet. And I think a lot of people coming out of small towns in Scandinavia had a very early favorable impression of the internet. I don't know,
Okay.
playing poker or hanging out on forums or playing online games or whatever it might be. And you see a generation of entrepreneurs in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland that are sort of from that generation, particularly in Sweden, I guess.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we started a company in the US. It's lived a few years in California, and then yeah, wanted to move back and raise a family and be close to nature and yeah, it's a beautiful place to stay.
So, what I heard you say in that story is that it would seem like, well, if you grew up with one TV channel, that would not help you in the world of digital media and technology. But when the internet came, there weren't a lot of other TV stations to pick from. So you doubled down. You're like, hey, this internet is way better. What's going on TV? And
Totally.
and you spent time on that. What was it? Were you more forums, poker, anything specific?
I mean, for me, all of the above,
Oh,
like
okay.
poker, online gaming, played way too much on the internet, various games. But for me, the biggest time sink, and I've at this point sort of deleted most of my profiles or anonymized most of my profiles, was hanging out on forums, just various forums like computer forums, mainly talking about, or it's like freak forum talking about various things. I mean, mostly politics or things like that. Have written a few thousand posts, and it's
So
rather embarrassing to go back and,
all the
and read them.
misspellings that you must have had. No, it is interesting to think about that because you run a 750 person remote organization that I think a lot of people would say, how can you do that creatively? But you grew up using forums, connecting with people, sharing ideas that way. And it makes a lot of sense to me that you would found a company that pulls from a lot of that and that communication.
Totally, and I think you also
So,
understand a little bit how the internet works, and especially, I mean, you learn, I guess, how some of these dynamics on social media really works. You learn how to stay away from trolls, and you learn how to I
oh,
mean, it sort of shatters your naivete a little bit. And I remember in starting this company, we just had a website which allowed people to go in and submit a task, and then we would do it and we would send it back, and we would say, this is $500, can you please pay us? And then most of the time people didn't want to pay us, and sometimes that was fair, but also there are a lot of people on the internet that just aren't very nice, and it's important to shatter that those illusions early on.
yeah, really cool. Thanks for sharing a bit of that history with us. So, Frederick, it's been a good one, sir. What's your parting thought for our listeners? Feel free to take it any direction you'd like.
I mean, we're excited to be a trusted partner to enterprise technology companies in the US and elsewhere. It's pretty much our bread and butter. We try to help them get creative done faster. I think we are the best in the world at that. We're the best in the world at building AI and automation solutions for enterprise technology companies, and happy to chat with anyone and everyone that would like to send me an email at frederick@superside.com, superside.com and we'll take good care of you.
Be nice to Fredrik. Don't troll him. And that was nice of you to that was nice of you to give your email out. Y'all, yeah, check out Superside, fun company. Stay positive, keep leading the team. Thanks, Fredrik.
Amazing. Thank you.